The Morgan Thomas Show. Brought to you by Black's Tire Inc.
What's up, everyone? Another episode. Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Facebook or YouTube. We really appreciate you coming in and joining us tonight. Alan, you and I together again. We are here by ourselves. No Houston again. He's enjoying his time being a brand new dad over there. So Houston, if you're watching, which you shouldn't be, you should be enjoying your little baby. But if you're watching, welcome. If you're watching over on Facebook and YouTube, welcome. And Alan, co-host, longtime friend, welcome.
Welcome, man. It's a good Monday night. You know, it's always a good Monday night when we get to talk Tigers. So it's a nice thing. Championship week. It's going to be a fun game. It was obviously a cool game several weeks back. So it's time for Tigers to get a little revenge. I'm happy to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking to talk about the Clemson Tigers. That's something we're going to do a little bit different. I know if you're coming in, you're probably thinking we're going to recap college football. We're going to talk about the game coming up, and then we're going to do picks against the spread. We're going to take a little bit of a divert course, and we're going to do kind of more of a question and answer tonight. Al, I don't know if you noticed this, but I got something in Facebook memories. I know you guys over on Facebook know what I'm talking about. When Facebook tells you something that you did maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Well, actually, today is the day, 2 years ago, that I started a live stream by myself to talk about, guess who? Clemson versus Notre Dame in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Isn't that crazy to think, man, just how the world has come full circle here. And now Clemson is playing who? Notre Dame. Not at the Cotton Bowl. Not getting those the Christian Wilkins cowboy hat experience, but still an exciting game. Probably maybe even a better game. But as Dabo Swinney said, you know, same teams, different time period, different situation, but different rosters completely. Now, Clemson is really the young team. Clemson has the young offensive line and the young defensive line. Notre Dame, on the other hand, as we've already seen, has a more experienced defensive and offensive line and, you know, might cause some issues, some difficulties that maybe weren't present 2 years ago. And so we know it's kind of round two. So we know what we know, but we know what we don't know. And that is that there are a lot of players that didn't play in round one that will be making their way back to round two. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about Clemson versus Notre Dame. We got a few other things, but it's all Clemson tonight, all question and answer tonight. So if you have any questions or concerns, emotional outbursts while we're talking, get in on the chat. But before I tell you anything, before we get into anything, Al, let me tell you about Black's Tire Inc. Family owned and operated since 1971. If you need new tires, brakes, alignment, tire repair, or just looking for a friendly professional to help answer your questions, check out Black's Tire Inc. located 1415 East Main Street, Westminster, South Carolina. Give them a call, 864-647-9292, and we really appreciate them. But let's get right into it, Big Al. You know, like I said, second anniversary show. Really probably should have done more. But probably should have had everybody calling in, all of our friends calling in and just praising us and telling how good we are. But we're just going to talk about Clemson because that's what's most important. That's what you want to hear about. But first question up on the night, and I you know, you can see I have a different screen here. I got the Clemson University in the background, Memorial Stadium there, just you and I. But question number one, let me put that up there. What will Clemson do differently against Notre Dame this time around that they weren't able to do last time around? And my first thing to you is I did watch Dabo Swinney's press conference. So I do have a little bit of an insight. I did have a little bit of a cheat sheet there to see what the coach thought. But what can they do? Let us know in the comments what you think they can do. But my first bullet point on that is, well, they're going to get these players back healthy. They say that James Skalski is very close to being 100%, which is amazing news. They say that Tyler Davis is going to be ready, Mike Jones Jr. is going to be ready, and then the man of the hour, which really didn't seem to be needed because DJ did so well. But still, Trevor Lawrence, there's things that he brings to the table that DJ cannot. But Trevor Lawrence will be out there as well. So that is 4 players that are going to make a huge difference. Not just any 4 players, Al, 4 starting players
Yeah.
And so that's my first thing. What can Clemson do differently? Well, bring a different roster.
That's not a bad point. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, look, everybody's going to talk about Trevor Lawrence and being gone, and we've actually mentioned it on the show. You just kind of mentioned it in passing there a second ago. DJ did a great job in this game. It certainly wasn't because of DJ that we lost the game. He kept us in it. It was dropping dimes everywhere. It was an incredible performance. Very impressed with that young man. It was just the fact that we couldn't consistently run the ball, and I think that's where Trevor Lawrence is going to be key here. Well, you hear a lot of people talk about his ability to run the ball and make Notre Dame respect that running game, because they didn't really have to against Travis Etienne. They loaded the box and stuffed him. That can't happen this time around. Trevor Lawrence has got to hold that ball. He's really good about holding the ball and pulling it at the last second or whatever. Reading the defensive end, seeing where he needs to go. That's going to be a huge thing this time around. And like you talked about, is on defense. It's funny because we talk a lot about Tyler Davis and how important he is to this defense, and James Skalski and how important he is to this defense. And those both very true. I think that was a completely different game had those guys been in there. As a matter of fact, I think Clemson wins that game if those guys were. But nobody seems to talk about, when the national analysts are talking about it and who was out, nobody seems to mention that Mike Jones was missing too. And I think he's going to play a big factor in this. Look, we all see Trenton Simpson. We love what he does. He's got huge potential as a freshman. But right now, as far as knowledge of the system, Mike Jones is ahead right now. That's why he's a starter. And I think he's going to make a huge impact there in this game, to go along with other defenders that we have. So bringing a healthy roster is going to be a very big deal. I think we talked about it several weeks ago that, I would take Clemson, minus 20 points. And look, I will admit this. Looking back, Notre Dame's a better team than I thought they were. Okay, they're not a bad team. They're not the Notre Dame teams of old where Clemson can go out and beat them 38-3 or whatever those scores were. They're a solid team. They're very veteran on the offensive and defensive lines, and that's something they haven't had. Something Clemson had the first time around when they played them 2 years ago, like you were mentioning earlier. So it's kind of a flip scenario here, but I think Clemson just flat out talents them when they're healthy, and I think that's going to be the difference in this game.
Al, wow. I mean, you went through like 16 points there.
No.
You've been holding that in all week. Well, that is true. I will give you that one.
Because you have your notes in front of you. So I told you, I noted it.
I can't believe you did that on no notes. But I do have notes today, but not very many. But what I'll say is something that's in the chat right now. Mm-hmm. And I mean, everything that you say, I agree with. The first thing you mentioned, you led off with, was the running game, which Dabo Swinney was asked, do you need to be more balanced? Well, it's not necessarily more balanced, because there was, 40-something pass plays, 30-something run plays, not really unbalanced in that sense. But right. The problem is the efficiency in the run game. The problem is when you have your opponent going 5 yards a carry, and then you're going 1 yard a carry. Right. With Travis Etienne. And remember, we talked about this. Travis Etienne finished with, 20-something yards? 1 yard your carry? That is unacceptable, okay? Sure. Clemson University football team knows that. We know that. 1 yard a carry from this team is unacceptable. And with Trevor Lawrence on the field, as you mentioned, it's not going to happen. All right, so Brian Kelly, it's not going to happen. 1 yard a carry you're not going to do that again to Clemson. Now, there are many times that Clemson had a chance to win that game and to seal the deal. I go back to don't run the ball out of bounds on your last series,
Yeah.
And so that's another crucial, not so much efficiency problem, but mental issue with the running game. Travis Etienne, you would expect better than that from him, of running out of bounds when it's needed the most. But people in chat are saying turning the ball over. That's another thing. Actually, Clemson ended up 3-1 with turnovers, and we talked about that. Kind of, it's been the Achilles heel for Louisville and other teams out there that they just can't seem to get it right because they're turning the ball over more. And uncharacteristically, Clemson turned the ball over 3 times to their 1. Now, that last one, when I say 3, you've got Travis Etienne, which was the fumble touchdown, which, I mean, will that ever happen again? Probably not. It won't happen again this year, because to me, that's just too statistically, improbable of a situation for him to fumble that right into somebody's hands like as they're blitzing in. I mean, I don't see that happening again. So thankfully we can say that hopefully that won't happen again. Now, will Travis Etienne fumble the ball? Hopefully not, but I mean, he can. It's a possibility. And Amari Rogers fumbled a catch. And the problem with those two turnovers, the last turnover was Braden Galloway at the very end of the game. So really I'm not counting that one. So really 2-1. But both of those fumbles from Rogers and from Etienne ended up with 10 points for Notre Dame. Take those away, I mean, that's 10 points off the field right there. And not only to mention that, Clemson was up by 7 with 1 minute and 40 seconds left in the game, Al. In the game. Yeah. So we're talking about, and my father-in-law who loves college football, he said, Clemson fans think they're just going to roll in there and beat them up. And I think that they need to be very careful because Notre Dame's a great team. But I think Clemson fans should be cautiously optimistic, but also I think that there's a lot of reason to be optimistic because you can't expect those turnovers again. And you look at, you got 4 players back, it was already mentioned, and you're not going to expect with Trevor Lawrence on the field to only run for 1 yard a game. So 3 things that desperately needed to be corrected are going to be corrected in this game just by without any coaching. I mean, they're just going to happen. So at that point, and this is also not a home game for Notre Dame. And so that takes away an advantage for them. But obviously Notre Dame matches up well because of their experience on the offensive and defensive line. So you have to be careful with that. Let's see. What else does chat say? So chat says don't turn the ball over. Trevor's going to be an impact for sure. Defense is going to be more of an impact. That's from Dylan over on YouTube. I say defense is definitely going to be an impact because if you look at Pro Football Focus, Al, some of the lowest grades in that game were from Xavier Thomas, Justin Maskell, Sheridan Jones. I want to say Andrew Booth, but basically that defensive line that was in place of those guys that were out, did not do as well as they needed to keep Notre Dame honest. I mean, the very first series of the game, they took it almost to the house, or I think it was like a huge play, if not a touchdown. And what was it? It was on Justin Maskell's side, and it was on Sheridan Jones's side. And they struggled with those outside sweep plays a lot in that first round. I don't think when you have Skalski back, when you have Mike Jones back, when you have Tyler Davis back, I don't think that that's going to be as bad of a factor in round 2.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. It shouldn't be for sure. And it's something I also want to talk about when you were mentioning, the running statistics and how bad they were, and they were atrocious. I don't expect them to be that this time around, but I would appreciate it if we would pass to set up the run. It's something that we should have done. It seems like against the Notre Dame in round 1. I mean, we were passing at will almost, and we had to once we got into second long and third long situations over and over. I wish they would pass, set up the run, because it was pretty clear that Notre Dame's not a bad defense. They're not a bad secondary, but DJ was able to put the ball on the money and make some plays in the air. So hey, why not try to open up the holes for Travis before he tries to run into a wall of defenders on the defensive line or Lawrence. That's one thing I'm afraid of with Lawrence being back is that they may try again stubbornly to run the ball with both of those because of his running ability. Now, hey, if it's working, great. I'm not going to complain as long as the Tigers are winning and scoring points. It's all good with me. But I think if you run into a few, second and long, third and long because of that, it would behoove them to try to pass, set up the run, use the middle of the field, that kind of thing. It's a lot of the stuff we've been preaching about all year that we like to see, tight ends being involved in that kind of thing.
I mean, I text David Hood today, and I told him my thoughts about, and he kind of shared the same thing that you said. So I said, Dabo Swinney talks about third down success. They were 4 for 15 from third down round 1. And to me, you and I have talked about third down success, but I think you would agree with me in the sense that third down lack of success in round 1 really could be attributed to poor decisions or play calling right, from second down.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I see first down and I'm like, okay, Clemson was not successful on that first down. And then I think, okay, Clemson needs to go to something that's like a bread and butter second down. And then they go to something that's not a bread and butter second down. And you're like, okay, well, let's say it's not successful. Well, now you've got two unsuccessful, and now you're putting yourself in a difficult situation third down to where, you're having to go to bread and butter maybe, and people are waiting on it, or you're having to go to a pass and you're waiting on it. So you're eliminating the run game altogether when you're already third and long because your second down play was not good. Mm-hmm. And so I want to see more success on second down. I don't know where to find this stat on second down. I looked all over, and maybe I'm just, missing it, but there's not a lot of places that say, here's success rate second down. I don't see it out there, but I would be interested to see what the statistics are with Clemson, what plays they call on second down, because I'm a little suspect. Let's just put it that way. But I want to see Clemson do better on third down because really, if you look at it statistically, Al, the last 5 years, okay, since really Clemson's been relevant, the last 5 years, 2015, not in the top 10. 2016 in the top 10. 2017 in the top 10 as far as third down success. Mm-hmm. 16, 17 in the top 10. This year, last year, and the year before, the last 3 years, not in the top 10. Right now, currently 30th in the nation in third down success. Who is in the top 10? Well, let's just tell you. Alabama's number 1. Ohio State's number 5. Notre Dame is number 6. So there is a gap there. And I know that, Clemson is obviously a great offense. But we're comparing good teams versus good teams now. We're not comparing Clemson versus Pittsburgh. We're comparing Clemson versus those 4 teams up there that are going to be up there probably at the end of this. And Clemson cannot afford to lose this game, not only just for Clemson, Al, but for the ACC. You cannot allow Notre Dame to come in here and not join the league and then win it on their first ever year, Al. That is, if that happens, Clemson might as well leave the ACC because it's ruined.
Yeah, I don't think Clemson's going to let that happen. I certainly hope not. We're going to find out, about 7 o'clock or 7:30, I guess, this Saturday. But I think it's going to be a fun game. I mean, the first game was a fun game. I do tend to think Clemson, I don't want to say wins this comfortably, but I do think they're going to win by 10 or more points in this game. And I don't know. I think. Oh, and by the way, I know I like to give Elliott a hard time as a play caller on here, but one thing that I said, I believe that I said this last week. When it comes to a championship game or a playoff game, he really tends to step his game up, in my opinion, throw a few more wrinkles in his game plan and whatnot. So I think that's something we're going to see on Saturday. You might see a little more tight end, something like that. And I'm really hoping we can see some play action on first down when everybody thinks it's going to be given to Travis or something like that. He really does his best work in those games, which hey, that's when you want him to do his best work, really. So that's a good thing. So I'll give him props for that over the last several years. I've really enjoyed watching those games and the way he's called those games. He prepares. We always hear about what a smart guy is. He's an engineer. They always talk about that on the air.
Oh,
so,
engineer.
Oh yeah, you know how us engineers are, right? Very intelligent. Yeah, you know that. He's going to call a good game. Brent Venables, is going to call a good game when he's got all his guys healthy. He's going to blitz. He's going to bring pressure. I'm thinking Ian Book's not going to be able to be, the masterful escape artist he was in the game before. It's not to say he won't make some plays. He will. He's had a great year. Ian Book's had a really great year, and I think he will have a good game. I just don't think it's going to be good enough.
Now, see, that you bring up a good point. Chat's also saying it. Who's stopping Ian Book? And my father-in-law said the same thing. Ian Book is a gamer, okay? And I agree. He is definitely a gamer. He's definitely somebody who's going to move the chains. You're only going to be able to kind of try to control him, not necessarily contain him completely. He's going to get out. He's going to move around. He's going to make plays with his feet and with his arm, or maybe both at the same time. So Ian Book is definitely a threat for Clemson going into this game. But I think that there is a positive going back to who's going to be on the field. I don't think that I think that he was able to exploit, Jake Venables and Trenton Simpson and Justin Maskell better than he would be able to exploit a Mike Jones Jr., a James Skalski, Tyler Davis, and hopefully a healthy Brian Bresee and those guys. So I feel like that Ian Book is also one that I'm just really curious to see how well he does. Now people that really need to. So before I go into the secondary, because I'm thinking about the secondary now, but the question was, how is Clemson going to get pressure on Clemson or on Ian Book? Now, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm thinking that the linebacker core is going to shine, but I also think that Tyler Davis is going to shine too. So, what do you think?
Yeah, and look, that's kind of the way the pass rush has been all year. When Tyler Davis has not been in the game, we haven't got any kind of pass rush, and when he is in the game, it helps out let the blitzers get free and whatnot. So you're going to see blitzes from the secondary, you're going to see blitzes from the linebacker. I don't know that you're going to with that veteran offensive line, I don't know that you're going to see a lot of pressure just from the front four. It would be nice, and I hope that's the case. But they didn't look great the last game against Virginia Tech, getting as much pressure. I thought they should have got more pressure there. The pressure came from other guys. It came from linebackers. It came from secondary, and I think that's what's going to have to happen in this game too. Tyler Davis has made the difference in the pass rush the entire year. I don't think this game is going to be any different, but he needs to eat up a couple guys on the offensive line. And that's what he does. That's what he's done, and that's what I think he'll do on Saturday. So Bresee, again, as well, he's going to do what Bresee does, and he's eating lots of double teams as well. He's got stuff to learn. He's a freshman. We all know that, but he's got the potential to be absolutely incredible. And hopefully, I mean, he's obviously made some strides from the first game to now, but it's going to be tough to get pressure with them because Henry and Murphy's been great. I've loved Miles Murphy. I've loved what I've seen from him. He's not your pure speed rush type guy, which is something you really look for in a defense. And KJ Henry has not quite been the pressure man that I thought he was going to be so far this year. So you got to find pressure from other places, and Venables will have a plan to do that for sure. He likes to bring all that pressure.
Chat also saying that they feel like that this is set up perfectly for Clemson because it's a revenge game. Also got chat saying, Scott in here saying that DJ not running hurt and hurt ETN as well. I mean, I would agree. 10,000% on that one because Trevor Lawrence, as we said in our last show, Al, Trevor Lawrence running the ball is going to be what gets Clemson to the national championship and hoisting another trophy. Trevor Lawrence running the ball. Trevor helps ETN get in space. Trevor distracts the defense. When you don't have that, and we know that DJ had a little bit of a shoulder issue, right? He wasn't completely 100%. We know that they didn't trust him running all by himself, and we know that he's, I don't know if they've raced one-on-one, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence is pretty fast. And DJ's a bigger, bulkier guy. I would say more of a Taj Boyd build. And Trevor Lawrence is, to me, a little bit more athletic as far as his build is concerned. Now, they both can chuck the ball like crazy. And they both are great quarterbacks, and Clemson's doing great. But Casey gets in and also says, what is it that causes us to think is going to be completely different? I don't necessarily think it's going to be completely different, but as we stated before, the turnovers, to me, were kind of like, especially the Travis Etienne one was an anomaly. I don't think that's going to happen again. I'm not saying he's not going to fumble the ball. I just don't think fumble for a touchdown could happen possibly twice. Another thing is the defense grade. Pro Football Focus has graded the offense that game a 73.6. Al, that was their fourth best game on offense.
Yeah.
They graded Clemson's defense 58.8. That was their worst game by far graded this year. So it wasn't that the offense was dropped off, but it was that the defense dropped off drastically. Worst game of the season on defense. And the reason why I think Clemson is going to have a different shot at this, and there's going to be a different result, is because there are three guys that are returning.
Yeah,
on the defensive
I think that's
front.
a big deal. Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually responded to Casey in the chat, and I was saying, look, I think the healthy defense is something I can't stress enough. You got the Trevor running ability, the fact that it's a neutral site game now. Venables has a head-to-head game of tape, and you know how Venables gets when he has this much time to prepare and when he knows, what their tendencies are, and the turnovers. And like you said, I mean, the fumble for a touchdown, goodness gracious, the 3-1 turnover margin or 2-1. I think if you're not counting that last one, like you mentioned before, I think all those things add up to a lot of points being scored in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me for it to be worse. But I told somebody earlier in the chat I have Clemson winning 34-20 right now, and I think that's pretty fair. But look, I think it's still going to be a pretty good game for the most part. But I just think there's too much that add up in the Tigers' favor that didn't go their way in the first game. That's going to be different this time.
To be honest with you, and I know I don't want to give Ohio State any credit at all, but last year's game against Ohio State was two juggernauts going at it, and I would almost say it felt like Ohio State was the better team. With this first round, with the first round of Clemson versus Notre Dame, that was two juggernauts going at it, but it felt like Clemson was the better team. They just didn't win the game, and it felt that way while having these players on the sidelines. And so that is the concern, not only while having those players on the sidelines, but also while making those 3 fumble mistakes, or, we'll say 2 fumble mistakes. But,
Sure.
But yeah, gosh, chat, man, you guys are so hot tonight. Thank you so much over on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching, or if you're watching through Twitter, we really appreciate it. Give us a shout in the chat. We got a ton of people chatting over on Facebook, over on YouTube, so thank you so much. We're trying to do something a little bit different tonight and just have a discussion between me, Al, and you, the fans out there, just kind of like what we did when we first started the show. Again, this is our 2nd year anniversary show, and we'll be heading into year number 3 after this. So really excited about that. But thanks again for the love and support. Let me tell you about some sponsors real quick. We'll get into kind of our thoughts on the college football playoffs and the selection committee that's coming up obviously tomorrow night. But let me tell you about Charleston Sports Pub of Clemson and downtown Greenville, and they also have 4 other locations in the low part of the country. Or low part of the state, sorry, not the country, but I guess technically, yeah, the country. But 359 College Avenue, Clemson, South Carolina. So if you're in the upstate and you're in Clemson, they have a location in downtown Clemson. As you can see, Clemson legends dine there. This is Mr. Taj Boyd there eating at the Charleston Sports Pub. Alan and I actually went there and had some dinner and also got to be around for the T. Higgins signing before he went to the NFL. So it was pretty exciting there. And then we did like a 2-hour live show, so that was fun. But great atmosphere. They've got at the downtown Greenville location. They've got like simulated golf where you can play Pebble Beach, and it feels like you're there. And so go check it out. Great atmosphere, great food, and great people there. Let Perry know that you heard about him from the Morgan Thomas Show. We really appreciate that. And not only that, we have another sponsor. That's Tiger Sports. They've been a long-time sponsor for us. We don't just dress for success. We TS for success. That's tigersports.com. You can check them out downtown Clemson or on Tiger Boulevard, or shop tigersports.com. Guess what? It's still time before the holidays. I still think you have some time to get in. They have some good deals going on, but I am wearing a Columbia pullover with the Clemson University Columbia pullover from Charleston Sports Pub, and Alan is also wearing a Tiger Sports Shop polo as well.
Yeah, your polo is actually from the Tiger Sports Shop, not Charleston Sports Pub.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Just for those out there listening.
Yes. Yes.
This is actually this polo is actually Tiger Sports Shop branded stuff right here. Okay, this is their own personal brand. They want to tout this as the same quality apparel, more affordable price. It's a great shirt. It's one of my most comfortable shirts for sure. They have this in white, where the white is a little more prominent than the orange. I recommend that shirt as well. So go check them out. Tiger Sports Shop, biggest, baddest collection in Clemson, downtown Clemson, or the US 123 bypass. Talk to Sean or Julie. Tell them the Morgan Thomas Show sent you.
All right. So next question up, and I'm taking the question down. I'm going to put this one up. Who will make it to the college football playoffs? Now, I think a lot has happened. The Shoegate has happened in the SEC.
Yeah.
By the way, I mean, man, what a dumb play from a player to chuck a shoe 20 yards down the field. What's a great call. It reminded me of the old Ron Cherry day of the, giving him the business.
Yeah.
Number 72, giving him the business, and he kind of did that. I don't know what that was, Ron, but glad you're enjoying your retirement. But also, this one was number 4 throws opponent's shoe 20 yards downfield, personal foul. That would have been great. I did some PA announcing for Wade Hampton. If that would have happened in high school, that would have been great for me to say over the intercom there. Just something funny like that, because I don't know if I could hold it together. But that ruined, well, you can't say that was the only reason, but that was a pretty doggone big reason that LSU ended up winning that game, because they were able to keep possession of the ball, keep going down the field, and then kick a 57-yard field goal in Gainesville in fog.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like the perfect storm. But, so Florida now is 9-2. They've lost that game. They've, to me, kind of going to drop down a little bit, obviously, after that, because LSU is a garbage team and lost at home. So, Walt came out today and said that he thinks that not only did Florida lose their shot of getting into the playoffs, but also lost their Heisman Trophy shot as well. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I don't know that I would full on agree with that. I mean, Trask's stats are still through the roof. It's just the Heisman has been become such this ridiculous award because nobody knows what the criteria is for what they're choosing. Is it the best stats? Is it the best player? Is it the best player on the best team? What is it? Nobody really knows. Is it the guy everybody thought was going to be the best at the beginning of the year? It's just we're not really sure of the criteria. But right now, as far as stats and on paper, sometimes in a crazy world when you really don't know what's going on, maybe you look to the paper. And Trask has some incredible stats there. Heck, maybe because of all the craziness, they don't look at the paper as much this year, which would benefit Trevor Lawrence. You maybe get him back in the race a little bit, if he has a big game against Notre Dame. I certainly hope so, as all Clemson fans do. So it's just kind of interesting to see what's going to happen there with the Heisman. So it's going to be fun. It'd be nice for Clemson to finally win their first one. If they're going to do it, this year may be it. Maybe all the craziness helps us out.
Now, I mean, going back to the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about this before the show. Florida, you're thinking that Florida still has a chance to redeem themselves and totally redeem yourself. And when I was looking at the matchup between Alabama and Florida, you already want to say Alabama's going to win because they're Alabama. They're going to win.
Yeah.
They're better. Well, on paper, anything can happen, and the LSU game was kind of, it is what it is, right? But, anything can happen in college football. They still do have to play in the SEC Championship game. And so Alabama, Florida still have to play each other this weekend. Now, what are the chances that Florida really can beat Alabama this weekend? I don't know, but if they did, that would really upend everything. That would actually cause Alabama to have one loss and Florida to be, at that point, have beaten the number one team in the nation. And you would say if, there's no way they could keep out a SEC champion. But to me, because they lost to LSU and Texas A&M, I would say keep Alabama in because I still don't trust Florida. But, that would be me. But I think at that point, you're right. Florida would have to go in as an SEC champion, even at 2-loss. But then Alabama wouldn't not get knocked out. Mm-hmm. That would really mess up Ohio State. That would mess up maybe even Notre Dame at that point. So run that through me. Run that by me.
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario, and again, this is what we were talking about before, the teams we think are going to make the playoffs, and I think it's going to be Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. And I think that's pretty much, honestly, I think that's pretty much status quo across the board. I think that's what most people think. Now, the question becomes, if Florida were to pull the upset against Alabama, what happens? Because they have 2 losses. One's a bad loss to a terrible LSU team. But how do you leave out the SEC champion? We all know, right? The football gods have chosen the SEC as the conference, right? So at least that's what ESPN wants you to think. So I just don't think they can leave out a 2-loss SEC champion. And when I say I don't think they can or should, I hope they do. Personally, I hope they stick it to the SEC championship if it's 2 losses. That's great. I just don't see them doing that, and you can't leave Alabama out because they lost to a good Florida team. That's their only loss of the year. That would be tough. I really think the odd man out in that scenario is either, assuming Clemson beats Notre Dame, is going to be Notre Dame or Ohio State. Ohio State is – I'd lean to Ohio State being the odd man out in that scenario unless Clemson really woodsheds Notre Dame. Because if they take it to Notre Dame, they're going to jump Ohio State to 4th and Notre Dame out because what they're going to do is take into account all the players Clemson had out versus Notre Dame the first time. And they would basically count that as Notre Dame's second loss. Like they would have beaten them the first time, and then Ohio State's going to get in. So it all depends on how close that Clemson Notre Dame is, if that's the case, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if it's a blowout against Notre Dame with the players back, that really that would probably kick Notre Dame all the way out. If it was a complete blowout.
Yep.
So Notre Dame needs to make sure that they don't have a blowout. Now, Mitch getting in saying Alabama should opt out of the game, and Mark Childress talked about this with he and I and Walt talked about this on Friday about how you could really screw everything up by opting out. But at that point, if you start doing that on purpose, let's just say wink, wink, hint, hint, you've really ruined all of college football. You've ruined everything that has come to pass for years, and really specifically this year, and all the blood, sweat, and tears that these players have gone through, and the risk that your players have gone through by then trying to game the system. And it even goes back to, well, Clemson should play Notre Dame a third time if they lose a close one and not play Ohio State because Clemson shouldn't be forced to play Ohio State. I used to say that, but I would say now, bring on Ohio State. I don't like this idea that Clemson is afraid of Ohio State because Dabo Swinney is complaining about Ohio State being jumped over Florida and Texas A&M. It is the truth. Playing 6 games is not fair compared to teams that play 11 or 10. Right. It's not fair. And it shouldn't be fair. And you should be penalized because you started late on purpose. Now, again, it wasn't Ohio State's fault. Ohio State and their friends and family actually did want to play.
Yep.
They begged to play. They said they were ready. Michigan even said, hey, we're going to continue to practice because we still believe that we're going to play. And this was early. And that was a big mistake from Kevin Warren. But I will say this. You still need to be penalized for that, just failure of leadership. And so should they have to play Clemson? I wouldn't want them to play Clemson just because I don't think they should be in the playoffs, really, to be honest with you. Now, there are some out there that have them barely even in the top 10, and I think that's really more fair, to be honest with you. They haven't played any better teams than, say, Coastal Carolina, to be honest. Coastal Carolina has more ranked wins, really, than Clemson too, but really they have more wins than better wins than, say, Ohio State, really, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I mean, and Texas A&M and Florida really kind of do too. So, but the SEC is also down. It is a very crazy season for sure, especially when you're comparing teams that don't play each other. And so the fact that there's not an out of conference slot or schedule at all has really screwed things up. But here's some of my notes from Florida, Alabama. So Florida is number 1 in the SEC in sacks. Both teams have good offensive lines. Both teams are good on third down against opponent third downs, basically. Mm-hmm. But Alabama has a little bit better of stopping teams from converting first downs, and Alabama has one of the best red zone defenses in the nation. And so I think Alabama will win because I think it's going to be high scoring, but I think that it'll be an issue with that red zone. And then it didn't look like, and I don't know, you can correct me, you might know, but it didn't look like that Kyle Pitts was on the field for LSU. So if he's not on the field, so is he going to be on the field for the SEC Championship game?
That I don't know.
And we talked about how, Kyle Pitts was really maybe the star of Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And so maybe it wasn't so much Kyle Trask. Same thing with Devonta Smith. Maybe it's not so much Mac Jones. Now people are starting to see, wait a minute. Mac Jones is just throwing to Devonta Smith every single time.
Yeah.
So
Might want to cover him.
yeah, so and maybe he needs to be the Heisman instead of the person throwing the ball. But
Yep.
but yeah, so for me, I still, as much as we want to go down that rabbit hole, I still have Alabama 1.
Sure.
Okay. I still have Clemson 2 because I do think Clemson's going to beat Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I have Ohio State easily beating Northwestern. I mean, come on. However, I don't want Ohio State in the top 4. I want them to be penalized because of lack of leadership in the Big Ten. But it's hard to argue when you have 100 points more scored for you when you're Ohio State than anybody else in the Big Ten. So they are the best by far Big Ten team. So it's hard to ignore that. And some people are saying, what about a undefeated Pac-12 team? Oh, come on. The Pac-12 is not even in the conversation.
I don't think that's happening. Yeah.
Not even in the conversation. So let's just scratch that. But Ohio State, and the Big 12 too, not in the conversation. Ohio State, I think, based on what we saw last year, and that's the problem, is that you're taking last year into account. And they've lost a lot on defense. That's the problem too. But Ohio State, I think, will get above Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really how it's going to work out. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame, 4th. Yep. So I think Alabama's going to play Notre Dame. I don't think they're going to put Clemson, Notre Dame again for a third time, especially a back-to-back game. That wouldn't make any sense. That would probably hurt college football ratings and credibility as a nation. So although I do think Texas A&M is a really good all-around team, they lost the only game that mattered. Now, here's something that I didn't bring up to Walt. What if Texas A&M had won the Alabama game, and Alabama was the one-loss team? Would we be saying that Ohio State with 6 games would go ahead of a 9-1 Alabama team that didn't go to the SEC? I think not. I think that people would say, well, we can't leave Alabama out of this. But because it was Texas A&M and because they got beat by 20-something points, it hurt them really bad. If it was a close game, maybe better. But I think Alabama, if they were that one-loss team, we'd be stressing out a lot more. And so what do you think about that?
No, I think you're right on with everything you said. I'm sitting here listening to you talk like, all right, what do I need to add? There's nothing to add. I mean, that nails it on the head to me. It's Alabama 1, Clemson 2, Ohio State 3, Notre Dame 4, and I think the same thing with Alabama. If they were one loss, they'd be screaming for them to get in for sure. So I agree 100%.
And that's the thing I mentioned to Walt on Friday when Central Florida came out. When they were undefeated, they were griping up a storm about being left out. Mm-hmm. You don't hear that from Cincinnati. You don't really hear that from Coastal Carolina, even though I think they both have good cases. You don't really hear any griping from Texas A&M. So where is the outrage? And my thing is, the fact that there is none probably concedes the fact that Ohio State maybe should be in there.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be. I don't see Northwestern doing anything there. I don't think anybody does really, if we're just being honest. But I mean, at the other side of the coin, I haven't been super impressed with what I've seen from Ohio State this year. Their defense looks like it's trash. And I mean, we were expecting a dominant team. That like last season, we were all worried about the defense and Chase Young and everybody they had. They lost a lot. They lost a lot from that team. Their defense does not look good. They've not played a really good team. I mean, if you want to argue Indiana, that's fine. But they haven't played a really good team in my eyes. Nobody, close to the caliber of these top 4 teams right now, or the teams at the top, I guess I should say. So I think we're really going to see what Ohio State's made of in the first round with whoever they play. To be honest with you, I don't really care if it's Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State. I don't think it really matters. I think we're going to really see what the Buckeyes have. And I don't think it's enough.
Chat gets in, says Pitts will be back. Casey, thank you for this.
Yep.
Seldom used reserve. Go check those guys out. Was held out of the game because they were supposed to win by 100. Huge mistake by Mullen. Well, by the way, Dan Mullen is a moron. Yeah. He came out and said that it was a football play, that throwing the shoe was a football play to him, and it shouldn't have been penalized. That's what you call not taking accountability for your team. It would never happen on Clemson. Let me tell you something. Dabo Swinney would have chewed that player out so bad that the national media would have said, Dabo, Dabo's too hard on his players.
Yeah.
Look at Dabo yelling at these young men. They just came out with a Disney movie named Safety that's uplifting, and here he is yelling at a young kid like that. How dare Dabo do that? How dare he? He should be removed. That's what they would say about Dabo. But Dan Mullen gets to come out and act like an idiot and say it was a football move. It was a good decision. He didn't say that, but I mean, when you say that, you're basically writing it off as it wasn't a bad decision. And it was a bad decision. The minute I saw it, I'm like, I'm sitting here doing my homework, and I'm looking over, and I'm like, this idiot just threw this ball, I mean, this shoe that wasn't his shoe 20 yards down the field. Now, Al, everybody should get penalized in this situation because let me tell you about a situation. So, back in the day, I was playing soccer against Easley High School, okay? And I had already missed one shot off the crossbar, okay? And it was a 0-0 game going late into the game. We had two shots that were just barely outside that were called back because of offsides. The referee kept calling offsides on us. And I got open, I got the ball, I kicked it, it went over too high. But guess what? I was called again offsides, okay? The ball bounced off the fence, came back to me. I turned around and kicked it like 40 yards down the field out of just frustration. Guess what I got? I got a red card, okay? I was taken out of the game immediately. Now, I could talk about many other, encounters that I've had with referees over the years, but that would be for another show. But what I will say is that even I, deep down inside, knew I did that out of frustration. Now, this guy did it not out of frustration, but, I mean, it seemed like just out of joy, which is still kind of weird. Like, you tackled him. You made a huge tackle. You want to chuck his shoe down the field. I don't get it. But, it was a dumb mistake, and he messed up. But I think Dan Mullen needs to step up for his team and actually take some accountability, and maybe that's why they'll never be where Clemson's at. Bill gets in and says Ohio State won't say it, but deep down inside, they don't want to play Clemson. The Nuts always lose to Clemson. I can't believe I just repeated that. But the Nuts don't like Clemson. Well, I will say this. That's not what the national media is saying. The national media is saying Dabo Swinney is griping about, Florida and Texas A&M should be mad that a 6-win team is ahead of them, and they played 9-10 games. And, the media is saying, well, this is Dabo scared of Ohio State. I mean, I agree with Bill in the sense that how could I shouldn't read the comments.
Bill.
I shouldn't read the comments.
Bill,
but
stop reading Bill's comment and do the show.
Ohio State, I mean, why should Clemson be afraid of Ohio State? Is it because what we admitted to before that we did feel it felt like Ohio State was the better team that lost late? Is that why we should be scared of Ohio State? Because I think historically, I mean, in the record books, I mean, Clemson has never lost to Ohio State.
Yeah. Look, hey, I just saw this. I'm sorry. I saw this comment come across the line. Okay. Dean Cox, Clemson royalty, gets in and says, I need tickets. Since when does Dean need tickets? Okay. If anybody can get tickets, it ought to be Dean Cox, right? What are we supposed to do if Dean can't get tickets? I'm not really sure.
That is true, Dean. You're going to have to explain yourself a little bit more in the chat on that one because, I'm surprised you don't already have the RV backed up into a parking spot up there.
Seriously, I was waiting on a ride.
I mean, Morgan acting like he was a Sarah Fuller of Westside High School. She's way better than me. Let me just put it that way. But you know what? It was historic in my own world. I was a Heisman in my own right, in my own dreams. But I don't see. I mean, do you think it's warranted for people to say that Clemson is afraid of Ohio State?
No, not at all. Clemson's never been afraid of Ohio State. I don't think they will ever be afraid of Ohio State. Clemson's not afraid of anybody. Not to say they can't lose. I mean, like you said, I think Ohio State played like the better team last year. I really do. And it was a tough game all the way around. People want to point to the Justin Ross call fumble. Was it not a fumble? Goodness gracious, that was a fiasco if I've ever seen one. But it's not about being afraid. Clemson is the elite. Ohio State is the elite. Alabama is the elite. They're not afraid of anybody. They will play anybody on any given night. As a matter of fact, I think they like the competition. I think it's a thing that Dabo thrives off of. And you're not always going to win them. We saw that with LSU last year. But no, being scared of somebody, no, absolutely not. Ohio State, a team that you beat handily. No, that's not a thing. I'm sorry. We beat them handily in the past. What was it, 31-0, not that long ago? And then I get it. We squeaked by them last year, but still. Get the W, and that's all that matters is the win column.
I mean, you can be chapped when you lose every game you play. I mean, come on, we can't say we empathize because we are not in that situation. So, I mean, but chat's also saying more soccer stories, please. Again.
Oh yeah.
Again, bear with me. There'll be more to come. This is the second year anniversary show. So, it will be.
Don't tell them that's the best one you got, okay?
That is probably the best one I have. No. The best one I have is against Lawrence. Let's go back to that game against Lawrence. No, I'm just kidding. But so let's talk about our final segment sponsors here because we're going to wrap it up. And but before we do, let's talk about Daniel Weber State Farm. Daniel Weber State Farm, 518 College Avenue, Suite 190, Clemson, South Carolina. 29631. Give them a call, 864-722-9083. And you can go to insuringclemson.com. When I look at some of the Google reviews, it's a wonderful place to have to go get your insurance. Anytime that they need anything, they call me. Every storm or anything that happens, they give me a shout. The girls are amazing there. Agents are genuinely nice and caring and go out of the way to ensure that their customers are happy. Katie and Madeline are super professional and consistently do everything in their power to make everything smooth and timely. So, yes, 4.8 stars. So 49 reviews over on Google Reviews, 4.8 out of 5. Daniel Weber State Farm for auto, home, property, business, life, and health, as also banking and annuities. Clemson class of 2011, fourth generation Clemson University graduate. Contact Daniel Weber State Farm. Again, 722-9083 or insuringclemson.com.
Giddy up. All right. Last sponsor, Heating Cooling Services, Inc. They are serving Anderson County and surrounding areas since 1980. Heating Cooling Services, Inc. is your residential and commercial comfort expert. Anything from preventative maintenance of your home HVAC system to overhauling a commercial chiller or anything in between. If you want to breathe easier and be nice and cool in your home or business this summer or warm and cozy in your home or business this winter, give Heating Cooling Services, Inc. a call. The number is 864-224-7655. You're going to want to talk to Mark or Jason Trammell. Again, their number is 864-224-7655. And something I haven't told the viewers in a while, I think you may have mentioned it several months ago, but Heating Cooling Services, Inc. actually does work for the Tiger Sports Shop, one of our other sponsors. All right, if the Tiger Sports Shop, the best apparel in Clemson, trusts Heating Cooling Services, Inc., you should too. So give them a call. Tell them the Morgan Thomas Show sent you. I see Troy Brown gets in here on the comments and asks if there's any Skowski injury update. Troy, the last thing we're hearing is that he's going to be. They think he's going to be fine. They expect him to play in the game, which we've already talked about at the beginning of the show. That's going to be huge for Clemson. He was a major loss. He's the quarterback of the defense. Expect him to play. I think Swinney kind of made some pretty vague comments about him maybe not being 100%, maybe plays. He expects him to play. I think that's a lot of coach speak. I fully expect to see 47 on the field starting and playing the entire game on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. And, last thing I read was that he was near 100%. So not all the way there, but expected to play. So good news for Clemson for sure. If you missed anything on the show, obviously we have our highlights. You can see them over on our YouTube channel. The biggest thing that you can do for us is help us out on the YouTube channel right now. We're at 965 subscribers. We're trying to get to 1,000 because then we can get super chat, we can get unlocked for ads, and 965 subscribers is just 35 away from 1,000. So we need 35 fans. So if you know somebody who might enjoy the show, just let them know about the Morgan Thomas Show over on YouTube. Again, you just go to YouTube and type in the Morgan Thomas Show. You should be able to find it there. And that is where you get all of our, throughout the week highlights. Now, we're going to try to do not just our podcast and this live show, but I'm going to try to do things throughout the week. And as you notice, we have an intern, Dixon. He likes to do some things throughout the week as well that we get in on, and I do the editing for. So if you want more content throughout the week, Clemson content that's video related and not an article to read, go check out our YouTube channel and give us a subscribe and like the video as well. We really appreciate it. So if you're in on the YouTube, got about 16, 17 people watching right now. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe. We would really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you're over on Facebook, we had a ton of people on Facebook tonight. Again, make sure you follow our page over there and then head on over to YouTube and give us a subscribe as well. So the last thing we want to talk about is a big pickup for Clemson. They just picked up 4-star cornerback Nate Wiggins. All right. And then I do have his stuff up. Okay. So Nathaniel Wiggins from 24/7 Sports. By the way, people say 247. It's not 247. It's 24/7. All right. Anna Hickey says 24/7. I say 24/7. All right. So Nathaniel Wiggins, cornerback, 6'2", 170. Those are some good numbers there. And he's from Westlake High School in Atlanta, Georgia, class of 2021. Westlake High School. Al, you know that there are other Clemson players that have come from Westlake High School.
Hey, one second. Tom Lloyd gets in, and how about a Xander update? I'm assuming he means Landon Xanders. Have you heard anything on Landon Xanders? Because I have not.
I mean, as far as the
chat, help him out. If you've seen anything on Xanders and his playing availability for this Saturday, get in and help Tom out and see if we can get him some info there.
As far as the depth chart, so I guess that's what's most important is the Clemson depth chart that I had. Let's see, it's on TigerNet. Clemson Notre Dame ACC Championship depth chart. This is released by Clemson University. Again, James Skalski is at middle linebacker, and Landon Xanders is starting at strong safety. So There's no reason to believe that either one of those players should be out at all. Now, it does say that do not expect Frank Ladson Jr., do not expect Joseph Ngata. So,
oh, wow, okay, because I had heard Frank Ladson, there was a solid chance he might play this weekend, so that's news to me.
Clemson,
for sure.
Yep, Clemson did not list it. They've got E.J. Williams, Brandon Spector, Amari Rogers, Cornell Powell, Joe, Will Brown, Will Sweeney. They do not have either one of those gentlemen there, so don't expect them. Jake Venables obviously broke his arm, will not be out on the field for sure. He's rehabbing that. He won't be back.
Yeah,
but
right. For sure. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were talking about Nate Wiggins and Westlake and some of our other guys from Westlake. So you were going to, I'm sure Terrell was one of those ones you were going to mention. Who the other guys you got from Westlake?
My guy, Sam, gets in, says he just subscribed. Thank you so much, Sam. I also had a pop-up of somebody else. Looks like Jonathan just subscribed. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Like I said, we want to get to 1,000 because it just makes us feel good. Just really makes us feel good. But if we get to 1,000, then we can have super chat, then we can have ads and stuff like that. We can start making a little bit of dough off the show. But we really appreciate the support there. And then, like I said, tell your Clemson fans out there, your Clemson friends, about the show, because we do this every Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. But last topic of the night. Again, Nathaniel Wiggins, I'm going to pull up some video if I can from Huddle, but Nathaniel Wiggins, 6'2", 170 pounds from Westlake High School. Not the only player from Atlanta, Georgia, Westlake High School, especially not the only cornerback, Big Al.
Yeah, without a doubt. This guy's a good get. He's a good pickup. He's somebody Clemson was, semi-involved with, I think, early on in the process. I don't know that either team or either side of that thought it was going to be a match, and it turns out late, LSU's went down the toilet. Their season was terrible. There's a lot of allegations going on at LSU. It's just not a really good situation right now. And I think Wiggins was looking elsewhere. Clemson needed a big-time corner. Nyland Green, who was their target all year, went to Georgia. And this was kind of the opportunity. I think the wheels were probably in motion pretty fast for this one. He flips, 6'2", rangy cornerback from Westlake. And I mean, that's kind of the ones that they like to work with. I think that's a similar size maybe to a Trayvon Mullen or somebody when he came out. So he's got to put on some weight. But that's not a bad thing necessarily. Real good athlete. I think he's known mostly for playing receiver, actually, in high school. So somebody who's going to have some ball skills, which is great to have at a cornerback. It's something I like. I love it when they get their hands on it. They actually keep it and pick it off. So it's going to be a fun thing. I think it's a fantastic pickup for Clemson late in the game. Mike Reed seems to swing somebody kind of at the last hour almost every year. People gripe about cornerback recruiting and late gets, but he always seems to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
I'm going to throw up some Huddle video that he's uploaded. This is midseason highlights he uploaded to Huddle October 24th. So check that out there. But again, guy, he is listed, like I said, 170, which to me, that's a little, that may be why he's not a 5-star, because he's got the height, 6'2", 170. Really, if you look at AJ Terrell's of the world, he joined the Falcons at about 190, 194 is what he's listed at right now. So AJ Terrell has a little bit more weight on him than what this Wiggins has coming out of high school. But again, coming out of high school versus going to the NFL, big difference. But this is a guy who is familiar with AJ Terrell. He's also familiar with another commitment from Dakari Collins, I believe. And so they've got guys that have been at that high school, and it's kind of like a pipeline by now, basically, from that high school. So another one that was really interesting, because Clemson was going after Nyland Green, and they were trying to get him, and Nyland Green chose Georgia on December 8th. And then 4 days later, Clemson gets Nathaniel Wiggins. He was committed to LSU for 4 months. So what do you think? I mean, does that kind of show that Wiggins was basically just waiting for that situation to open up for him? I mean, you've been committed to the LSU Tigers. I mean, I think it's a perfect storm too, because you've got Ed Orgeron, who's really screwing up everything over there. Mm-hmm. Talk about a one-hit wonder. We made fun of him for being it, and now he is living it out to the max of the one-hit wonders over there. But within 4 days, it speaks to the power of the paw, if people say, in the recruiting world. But it speaks to Clemson and the success they've had in recruiting and the ability to get players that they need even late. You got Travis Etienne, a guy who flipped Texas A&M to Clemson. You got Malcolm Green, LSU to Clemson. Now Nate Wiggins, LSU to Clemson. Does it surprise you that within 4 days Clemson had somebody else?
It doesn't surprise me. It's always surprising, but it never surprises me because I've seen Clemson do this before. So it's always nice. It's always a nice surprise to open it up and be like, oh, by the way, we got our cornerback commit that we really needed. So that's awesome. It's out of nowhere. It's kind of interesting to see, but it's something Clemson's able to do. They have the clout to do it right now. They're the Clemson Tigers, like you said, power of the paw. They're winning national championships. They're in the playoff every year. That's what happens. That's why you're able to do that. Clemson usually gets its guys and it keeps its guys. And that's happened. That's happened year after year. It's something they do. Like, obviously we had a decommitment or two here this year, which was kind of tough. Corey Foreman and Jordan Hancock both going to be phenomenal prospects. And hey, who knows? Corey Foreman could end up back in the fold. As a matter of fact, Troy Brown gets in, asks about any comments on Corey Foreman. Look, there's a lot of pull when it comes to those Southern Cal kids. A lot of those California kids have a lot of pressure on them to stay at home. Who knows if that's the case here or not? Not all of them stay at home, as we know. But it's just one of those things. Who wins? Is it the people, pulling you in a direction? Is it, where you truly want to go? I don't really know. I think he loves Clemson. I don't think he would have committed to Clemson in the first place if he wasn't really in love with the school. So look, he's been a lot of places. A lot of people's been the leader at different times, at least, in the public. So it seems like a pretty impressionable kid. Maybe a flavor of the week type thing. Who knows? But look, I'd love to have him at Clemson. If you look at that kid in his profile picture, you look at that smile, that's a Clemson man smile. So I'd love to have him over here in Death Valley for sure.
What about me, Al?
Oh, without a doubt.
If you're listening on podcast, you're probably completely clueless about that situation, but I was smiling. Clemson develops players, and I think it works out great for Corey Foreman, as you mentioned. Yep. I think they developed defensive ends for the past 50 years, really, to be honest with you. Defensive ends, defensive linemen are a staple from Clemson University and have been for many, many years. When my dad was watching as a young kid, now me, it is something that you expect from Clemson to have great defensive linemen, and they continue to have them to this day. And so that would, I would think, signal good sign for Corey Foreman. The bad sign is it is thousands of miles away. I mean, that is very difficult. I mean, you're already seeing it with Eric Gilbert on a losing team during COVID-19, wants to go home.
Yeah.
Time to go home. 5-star tight end, probably going to go back to Georgia, where we all thought he would originally go. Was a commitment, was a target for Clemson, but that homesickness is a big deal. And when you can't just go home now FaceTime makes it a lot better, but it's not just your family. It's your friends, it's your neighborhoods, it's your favorite restaurant. It's things like that you're going to miss a lot. And so you got to be prepared for that. And mentioned in the chat as well, Big Dave recruiting Corey Foreman is a big deal as well. Big Dave can attest to the struggles and the ups and downs that DJ has had, but DJ seems like he has fit in well and has adapted to the environment, but he also knows that he's coming up next. And I think Corey Foreman would know that as well. So these players that know that they're going to be the man the next year should be a little bit more confident, but there is that kind of first year waiting around. And maybe Corey Foreman would come in the very next season and jump guys that are juniors and seniors, but it's not always a guarantee. So there is that iffy situation. But Clemson develops players not only defensive line, but defensive backs as well. And we see that with Mike Reed getting a first rounder in A.J. Terrell. It's a huge, huge bonus that a Westlake guy goes and gets drafted by the Falcons. You got to think that Wiggins is a guy who sees that and thinks, this could be me. I want this to be me. And okay, here they're now calling me. I'm not going to play with LSU anymore. Like I said, especially with LSU, with all the negative stuff happening with them, it just happened all perfectly. Now, would you want Clemson to have gone after him maybe earlier? Well, they went after Jordan Hancock, and Clemson's very strict with going after or over-signing players. And so they're at the point where now there would possibly be 2 oversigns. Correct me if I'm wrong, Al. If Corey Foreman and, say, another offensive tackle that we won't name names commits, then that's 2 oversigns. And so that means 2 players currently with a scholarship are going to have some difficult conversations about, hey, are you really going to get a lot of playing time? And even though they still are have another year under their belt, they may not be able to stay at Clemson, to use it, to be honest. I mean, it's a difficult conversation, but it is the truth when you're dealing with elite players that are coming in and coming out, and you're not, getting that starting job. So I don't like those difficult conversations. I'm sure Dabo doesn't like them as well, but it's still out there. It's still a possibility. But we're talking about Nate Wiggins. I think it's great for Clemson. They obviously needed that cornerback. And the cornerback really, why do they need the cornerback so bad? From what I can tell, we all think that DK is going to go. And I'm even seeing DK as being maybe a number 1 overall. I mean, not number 1 overall, but first round draft pick, excuse me. No,
you had me going there for a minute. I was like, wow.
But I'm seeing DK as like a low first rounder is what I meant to say. Like I'm talking like, in the low, high 20s, low 30s.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see him, slip down in the second round or something like that. But he's got good athleticism. He's got the dog in him, as people like to say. He likes to fight. Has the mentality to move on to the next play. It has the trash talking thing down a little bit. That's something a good cornerback seems to have. Mackenzie Alexander had that as well. So it's just a mentality they have. If they get beat, that's okay, because they're the best in the game, and they can make it happen on the next play. That's something that I think he's kind of getting a reputation for. I think it'll serve him well moving forward in the NFL. Hopefully, if first round is where he goes, and kudos.
Got a ton of people. Mitch getting in saying he is subscribed over on YouTube as well. Man, we got, I think, 3 or 4 so far that end up subscribing. We're getting closer and closer to that 1,000. I don't want to beg you, but it really would help us out to get to that 1,000 and, help out. We already have the hours. Al, you only need 4,000 hours of watch time a year, okay, on YouTube to be eligible for their monetization.
Okay.
So you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours watched. Well, we're at like 12,000 hours watched. Thank you, fans. Thank you. We're like killing it with hours watched. We just don't have, the right amount of subscribers yet. So when you do subscribe, And I'm telling you, the people that do subscribe are watching a ton of it, and we really appreciate the support there. We try to get out the best Clemson content for you, so thank you. But chat's also saying Chase Bryce. Thoughts on Chase Bryce? The problem with Chase Bryce is that he had a horrible year this year.
Yeah.
In a time where you thought he would have success with the quarterback whisperer, he ended up turning the ball over almost 3 times a game.
Yeah.
That is unacceptable. I don't know where he's going to go, but I can't imagine him taking a step up now, unfortunately, because now they're seeing, oh man, you didn't really have a ton of success there. So I don't know where he's going to go. I really haven't heard anything. I'll do a quick search here, but I don't. I
haven't heard any rumors there either.
Yeah,
I haven't heard any rumors there. So who knows? I mean, look, I'll tell you this. I'll play devil's advocate for you there. He could take a step up. They could take into account that he was working with all Duke players.
Yeah.
All right. And who knows? Maybe they're like, he would have done better if he'd had a receiver to throw to or an offensive line to block for him. I'm just saying it's a possibility. I have no idea where he's going to go. I haven't heard anything. It could be up, could be down as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah. So chat says South Florida. Obviously that's kind of like, I think, most people might think that. It's hard to say though. I don't really know the situation down in South Florida. But might be a good thing for you to cover there, Casey, when you do later this week. But says Rutgers also might be in on him as well. So that's another one. Rutgers maybe. Rutgers actually did really well this year, compared to the other teams. I think somebody was saying that there was a lot of money exchanged in Vegas over Rutgers games that people were picking against them that they lost. So made Vegas rich. But again, thank you so much for tonight. Like I said, we tried to switch it up a little bit and do more of a Q&A type style. I think we're going to keep it this way. I don't mind the picks against the spread, but to be honest with you, reason why we did picks against the spread live like we did so many games is because Yahoo took down their picks against the spread game, and the other websites took down picks against the spread game because of COVID, because nobody knew when the season was going to start at the time. So hopefully next year we can get back in it, so you can get back in on our challenge, because we usually do a picks against the spread game where we give out a gift card to one of our sponsors. So hopefully we can do that next year. The season is almost over, Big Al. This weekend is the conference championship games. Now let me ask you this one last question before we let everybody go.
Yep.
How do you feel about these teams, bowing out of the bowl season, like Boston Colleges of the world, just saying, hey, we're done?
Well, you're trying to trap me, and I don't appreciate it, first of all. Okay, because if I call them a bunch of cowards, that's not good. Okay, I could get blasted. I might get fired from my job for saying that, because I'm not allowed to say that. I don't care for it. I prefer everybody play, but we've had a decent time, I think, controlling the environment, controlling COVID and playing through it and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think we've had any overly negative effects in the football world in general. So I don't think it's, going to hurt anything to play a bowl game, give your fans something to cheer for. It's been a tough year. And I think all the football we can get is a good thing. So I don't like that they're bowing out. At the same time, I understand why they're bowing out. I think it's financial too. I think a lot of teams lose money going to bowl games. And so that it's certainly fair. I'm not gonna say anybody is wrong for doing that. They're not. It's just tough for us as fans, like I said, who didn't have the season we thought. A shortened season, games canceled, games postponed. You didn't get to play your rivals, some of us, and some people are getting to play way less games. So it would be nice for them to kind of step up to the plate and take on another challenge for their team, give their fans another chance to get on their feet for them. But I understand completely either way.
Well, the question is too, does Boston College get a share of the money of bowl games? Of that.
I hope not.
You would wonder what's going to happen. I haven't heard one way or another, but I am glad, like chat saying over on YouTube, I am glad that there is football to talk about. But you got to also think, these teams that are bowing out on purpose, should they be allowed portion of the prize money from these bowl games? I would say no, but again, I also feel like we just need to be thankful to have a playoff. But I'll also tell you this too: with everything happening the way it is, I will agree with RJ Young over on YouTube. There should never be an undefeated team that is left out completely. It is ridiculous that we're still not at a playoff situation where we have more teams that are allowed in. And I almost would say this. I would say, force everybody to play 10 games. Now, you can play whoever you want in 10 games. But you can't play, like, you can play more than 10 games. I would say you can even play more than 10 games, but only 10 games would count towards your, playoff chances. So you could play a FCS team or a below level team, but only 10 games would count towards your playoff chances. And then you get into like maybe an 8-team playoff. I know some people have tossed around a 16-team playoff. I'm actually not even opposed to that, as long as you hold it to 10 games for the regular season, including your playoff game or your championship game. That would be me. I would like to see teams play about 14 games, including a 16-team playoff. That's what I would say.
Well, I'm not going to chase that rabbit too far because that's a long discussion, but I wouldn't mind an 8-team playoff. I'm certainly not opposed to it. Take the conference champion and then 3 at large, something like that. I'm cool with that. From the Power 5 and then 3 at large, I'm okay with that. But hey, honestly, if you're Clemson right now, the 14 playoff is perfect. You don't have to play an extra tough game in the playoffs. You're always one of the top 4 teams as of right now. So hey, it's the path of least resistance to the championship is what you're looking for, and right now this is it.
One last thing, too. Bill gets in and reminds me of this, and we have an undefeated Clemson University team that's also not only undefeated, Big Al, but they are in the top 25 right now, 5-0. Clemson doing really well on offense and on defense, and this is something we talked about a ton last year. Nick Honor is a game changer because he's a guard that can push it. He's a guard that can be the general and manage it and drive to the lane. And it's just amazing to see what he can do. Clemson actually, Brad Brownell came out and said Clemson had to win the Alabama game twice. They were up by 10, got down by 1, then got up by 10 again. So Clemson had to win that game twice in a very short amount of time. But they're doing great. And actually, as Bill mentions it's December 14th. Look out. They travel to Virginia Tech, Blacksburg, 6:30 p.m. ACC Network tomorrow night. So you got that game up as well. So that's one that'll take you in. Now, the South Carolina game is postponed. So that one's not going to come up this weekend. I believe it was this weekend. But you've got the Virginia Tech game tomorrow night, and then obviously the ACC Championship game on Saturday. So that is your Clemson glance schedule of the week. But Al, on behalf of myself and Big Al, we'll let you say good night. Thank you again over on Facebook and YouTube for participating in the chat. It's been great. We had upwards of about 60 people watching live tonight between Facebook and YouTube. So thank you so much for the love. And we'll be back next week, hopefully with a Clemson win from the ACC Championship game. Looking forward to the college football playoffs. But again, on behalf of myself and Alan Adams, and as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.